Now, a Cambridge charity is trying to improve food diversity at Cambridge City Food Bank to cater to different ethnicities. Their mission is to improve the lives and conditions of groups who face disproportionate disadvantage. Dr. Kal Karim is a trustee of the Karim Foundation, and he joins me now. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum salam, Amir. How are you?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Are you well?
Yes, I'm well. I'm fine. Hope everyone is as well too. We're looking forward to maybe some of the restrictions being reduced next week, but clearly social distancing and all those things that we need to do, we still have to carry on with that.
Absolutely we do. But there, as you say, there are things to look forward to. We're easing out of this, aren't we? And it's not a moment too soon. Let's just hope it all goes according to plan. So listen, brother, thank you so much again for joining us. And I suppose the logical starting point here is, first of all, tell us about the Karim Foundation and crucially, why was it formed?
The Karim Foundation is named actually after my late father, Abdul Karim, who came to Cambridge in the late 50s. Originally, that was East Pakistan. He was born in India and then obviously became Bangladesh. We've recently had the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh. And so he came in the 50s and he brought many of his relatives and immediate family also over. He was one of those individuals that was quite pioneering at the time. He started his own business, restaurant business, and after that my mother came in the 60s, and my brothers and sisters were all born and raised in Cambridge, and we've lived here all our lives. And so moving about sort of 30, 40 years forward, one of the things that we wanted to do is sort of remember his legacy and his generosity and how he helped people. And out of that, during the pandemic, we registered the charity with the Charity Commission in September last year, and then the Karim Foundation was born.
I mean, what an amazing way and a beautiful and poignant way to remember his legacy. I mean, it's an amazing thing to do. Was it something that was in your mind for quite some time before you started to make inroads to get this off the ground?
Good question. I mean, it actually had been for quite a while. My sister Shahida Rahman is a trustee. We've got a close friend of the family, John Dre Hunter, who's also a trustee, and then my nephew Ibrahim, he's the communications director. So the four of us got together, and to be honest, we didn't really have much time over the years, but the pandemic allowed us to have time. I saved time based on my commuting. And sort of during the pandemic, we were able to allocate that time and those resources in order to work on helping those individuals in need. And this really started sort of back in March when we had the first lockdown. But we'd been thinking about that, Amir, probably for about 10 years or so, and was never sort of been able to get over the line and register it. But we have been active since March, helping people during the lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have spoken before on another station, and I'm just pleased to have you on Salaam Radio as well. We can have a longer chat. And you mentioned your sister there, Shahida, and of course Ibrahim, who I know both very well and have done for a couple of years. And the work you all do, not just in the Karim Foundation, but just how active you are. Mashallah, it's an inspiration. It really is just how amazingly active you are in all sorts of initiatives. So mashallah to all of you, and may Allah reward you for your efforts. Now, this food diversity issue at Cambridge City Food Bank is your latest effort, really. Tell us about this. What is this initiative all about?
Well, when we had the lockdown in March, we did notice that the donations to those sort of food baskets in the major superstores was pretty low. But we'd noticed over the years that the food is all pretty much the same. There's not a lot of diversity, especially in Cambridge. I know that there is in other cities, but there wasn't sort of ethnic food for Europeans, Africans, South Asians. It was sadly lacking. So we spoke to the Cambridge City Food Bank, and we had a discussion about how we could sort of increase the diversity of food provision. That led us to sort of understand, this was after an appeal that we had where we raised nearly £20,000 for the City Food Bank, that there was an additional need. And one of the things we realised was that Muslim people were disproportionately affected during the pandemic. And many of them are not coming forward, and many of them are not accessing food banks and other services because there isn't food there that they would like to eat. And we addressed that by having a a campaign during the month of Ramadan where we raised money specifically for the Muslim community, and we partnered with a local store, Al Amin, in Mill Road, and we were able to work with the Cambridge Ethnic Community Forum, which is an umbrella organisation where they would vet individuals and families, and they would come forward to us, and we would provide the food to those families, mainly halal meat and halal produce, and we'll be able to do that sort of within sort of 24 to 48 hours from point of contact to delivery. That made us realise that there were a huge number of families and individuals that were actually under the radar, that even the local authorities didn't even know existed, and were actually suffering in silence.
Well, so you've seen this in some respects firsthand in terms of those people that have had to resort to the use of food banks, but then not being able to obtain the ethnic foods that I suppose they're used to. And you've seen this yourself. And what sort of numbers have you seen during the pandemic at Cambridge City Food Bank in your dealings with them? Have you seen with your eyes an increase in the number of users of food banks generally, or compared to pre-pandemic? What are your views on that?
Well, if you look at the Trustee Trust, when they've done surveys, that they've mentioned that food banks across the country have had issues with less food being donated to the food banks. I think just taking a step back, I think one of the things that we realised was that ethnic minorities were not even going to those food banks because there wasn't the kind of food that they would be able to access. So just because the food banks may not see people from ethnic minorities, they may have an idea that there isn't an issue, and we've clearly identified that. As the Karim Foundation, with working with our partners and the Food Poverty Alliances within Cambridge, we've helped well over 300 individuals and families.
Wow.
And that's across all of the CB postcodes across Cambridge. There isn't a CB postcode where we haven't contributed. And we're still doing that now. We have food orders almost on a daily and weekly basis. So we're supporting those families. But many families, Amir, unfortunately, won't come forward. I think much of that is to do with very complex needs, and also to do with anonymity in the community, not being known and recognised. So we have to firefight some of those issues. But we've found ways around that, where we're actually providing food to the city council, to one or two individuals there that work in the city council, who then will provide the food to the families. So there's complete anonymity now. So we don't even know who they are. We know that they're in need, but we've found a way to be able to provide food for those individuals where they want complete anonymity from anybody in the community knowing.
Well, that's excellent.
I think that is quite a sensitive issue.
Yeah, it is. And I've had first-hand experience of that. So I used to volunteer at one of our local mosques, used to do a food bank, and it was a Trustee Trust food bank. So obviously we'd get their donations delivered to us, which didn't really include ethnic foods of any kind. And that side of things would be from donations from the congregation that were donating to our food bank. So we would have a small stock of ethnic foods. But you're absolutely right, brother, that I've seen that myself, where, the anonymity is important to some families for obvious reasons, and the sensitivity around having to rely on a food bank is not something that, many families would want to openly disclose. So it's great that you found a way to kind of circumnavigate that issue by working with the council to get the food to their homes rather than them having to come to the food bank, which is excellent. What other results of your efforts have you seen? You mentioned 300 odd families that you've helped in terms of getting the types of food that they need. But what else have you seen as a result of the efforts of the Karim Foundation in this aspect?
Talking to our partners in Cambridge, we've then realised that when you intervene for a family that have food or fuel poverty, there's so many more complex needs and complex issues that those families have that is not just related to food and fuel. And the council have realised that. And it's very complex because families are sometimes reluctant to come forward. And as a result of that, you must realise that there are other complex needs that they have. So those complex issues have been identified by the council. Some of those families need continuous support, so we've been doing repeat work with them in order to provide assistance. But also it's signposting them to what the council can offer, what other issues that may be, what other things that may be available for them in terms of sort of financial issues or other type of help that may support them that they may be unaware of. So I guess one of the things that we're trying to do is sort of champion the information and the resources that is also available outside of the Karim Foundation. So we're acting as a bit of a catalyst to try and provide support across all of the different areas that families and individuals might need.
Now, do you hope to be able to replicate this with other food banks in the city? I'm assuming there's more than the one Cambridge City food bank.
Well, it's not just the food bank itself. They have a Fair Bite, which is also a shop where you pay a few pounds membership, and that shop may not also have the kind of diverse food. So what we've decided to do is, which I think is unprecedented in the city, is trying to partner with local stores. And just recently, we've worked with a European store that provides food for probably 6 to 8 different different countries from Eastern Europe, a Chinese store, and also an African store. And the idea is then that we can have baskets in those stores, in those independent stores, so that you can also support your local businesses. But those 3 stores could cater for almost 20 different nationalities.
Yeah.
So it's also working with them. And then the idea is that we would then collect those, the food that is provided to them, and we would then donate them to the food bank that would then be given to the Fair Bite shop. We've noticed that people are less reluctant to go to a shop than the actual food bank itself. So what we're trying to do is give people choice. They can choose to go to the food bank if they wish. They can self-refer to us as a charity if they wish to, also to the council and also to the Fair Bite shop. So the idea is that they're able to access all of these sort of resources, mainly food-related, from a variety of different avenues.
Okay, it's excellent work. It really is, and I hope you can achieve even more than you have done already. What's planned for the future? What initiatives have you got planned for down the line later this year?
Well, I guess with Ramadan coming, inshallah, next week, we're hoping to have a campaign and raise money for the Karim Foundation so that we can provide and continue to provide sort of that level of assistance. So if anyone wants to see what we do and also donate, then you can just go to the karimfoundation.co.uk or go on any search engine and type in Karim Foundation. You'll be able to find us. So Ramadan is going to be quite important for us, but also working with more local stores and also shops in order to try and increase what people in the city do in order to not just support us, but support people directly. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be pushing forward. We're also working with the City Council on the ecology strategy for the next 3 years, so that's 2021 to 2024, because they want to hear from ethnic minority communities. Sometimes we don't always come forward, but they're looking for our opinion and they're looking for information about how they can better serve the ethnic minority community. I mean, we do not speak on behalf of the Bangladeshi community, which is what my background is, but we do have an interesting insight into what goes on, having been born and raised here. So looking at things like strategy, how we move forward, all of those kind of things are going to be important. And obviously after lockdown, we still want to make sure that people are adhering to the social distancing rules. So we've worked on posters and we've worked on translation of these kind of information for the ethnic minority community as well. So we're going to be pretty busy, but I guess our main focus now is thinking about Ramadan and thinking about the campaigns that we can do during the next month or so.
Absolutely. And just one more time, what's the web address for people to visit to learn more about and crucially donate to the Karim Foundation?
It's www.Karim Foundation, so that's Karim and then foundation.co.uk. If you go on any search engine, you type in the Karim Foundation, you should be able to find a little bit more information about us.
Fantastic. Brother, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to learn more about the Karim Foundation and what's planned and also, crucially, what you've done as well. Thank you so much, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for having me on, Amir, and my salam to yourself and everyone listening.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much. Okay. That was Dr. Kal Karim, trustee of the Karim Foundation, a Cambridge-based charity that aims to relieve poverty by providing food, help with domestic costs and emergency support for those in financial hardship, irrespective of their background. So do check them out. And of course, it's Ramadan. It's a time of charity. So it's a worthwhile cause to be donating to them.